All right, so what are the regulatory risks associated with short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, those things? There's basically four different types that I see. All right, there's no one cares. The government doesn't care. The people around, maybe they care, but they can't do anything because it's not illegal, so therefore it's legal, right? Mostly these are small rural towns, and the things could change at any moment. And I've seen that too in these small towns where all of a sudden county commission or city, the town hall, whatever, they come together and put a bunch of restrictions in place out of nowhere. And then legal battles ensue, and you're caught in this limbo of like, can I do it or not? It's there. It happens. I've seen it. So that's the first regulatory risk, is there not being laws. That is a risk. Okay. Then there is the so that's no one cares. Next one is a lot of people care, and including the government, and they're very restrictive or even just outright ban it. Right. So at least there, you know what you're getting. You know what you're dealing with. You can probably only go in a positive direction. Either don't participate in it. I mean, like the laws can go in a positive direction, right? They're already super negative. So maybe one day they'll get better. I'm kind of optimistic they will. A lot of things are changing in the landscape at really high court levels nationwide. They're having implications across the country. Example, in Las Vegas, the city, you have to be an owner-occupant in order to obtain a license to operate a short-term rental. That rule was struck down by a federal court in New Orleans last year, right? So it'll take a while for that rule to permeate through the country, but it is, in fact, unconstitutional per precedent law, and that rule will have to change here and elsewhere. All right, another thing that I see places like this doing is collecting taxes on illegal operators, right? So Clark County and the city of Las Vegas, for example, they get a distribution from Airbnb every month on the tax revenue that Airbnb and VRBO, they collect it. They collect it from the guests and cut a big check every month, just one check, not like a line item, like here's all the properties. No, it's just one big sum of money that they dump in their laps, right? Effectively creating a situation whereby the governments are incentivized to not enforce their restrictions because they would just be enforcing down their tax revenues, right? So I do see a lot of positive movement towards property rights in both cases that are coming out and just the things that governments are doing. Like they make money, right? So they're probably going to want that money to want to keep that money coming in. So just because of those things alone, I do see things moving in a positive direction. But for now, there are places that are super restrictive. You probably just don't want to go there. So we talked about don't want to do it. Doesn't want to regulate, no regulations. That's a risk in itself. Lots of regulations and restrictions. Obviously, super risky to try to operate there, but good to have the knowledge of it. And then third one is legally protected. Example, state of Arizona has a state law that protects short-term rental operators from too much regulation. There's limits to how much restrictions and rules that locales can implement, which is cool, but it could also change with political winds, and in fact, it already has. It used to give almost no authority to municipalities to regulate short-term rentals, like none at all, and now there's a few things they can do, and it could change with any legislature, right? So there's that type of regulatory risk, but having statewide legal protection to do it is pretty cool. And then there's the lowest form of regulatory risk, highest form of property rights protection is in Texas, where the Supreme Court has determined that short-term rentals are a state constitutional right. And Texas is very property rights friendly for any type of property. Basically, you can use and dispose of your property as you see fit, period, regardless of what you're doing with it. The state Supreme Court affirmed that right also exists if you want to short-term rent your property. Precedent law. That means you would have to change the Constitution in order to change the rights of property owners, which is a difficult task to say the least. So that's, as of right now, honestly, my favorite place to look to get into short-term rentals. There are other places out there that are super friendly, even more friendly than Arizona, for example, that have, I guess you could even say this is kind of a fifth way. Like if you look at the Ozarks, or a fifth type of regulatory risk. You look at places like the Ozarks or Broken Bow, Oklahoma, right? Like they're so accustomed to vacation homes before vacation homes were even a big thing that they just want you to pay a tax and they're cool with it. And that's probably not going to change because like governments like to get taxes. They like receiving them. And those places that I just talked about, and there's several others, they have been receiving them before Airbnb.com even existed, and they're happy with it. They're happy that they're getting more now that more Airbnb.com. So that might even be the best because there's a financial protection in place. That might even be a stronger protection than precedent protection. We'll see. But definitely places where you're protected by precedent and then protected by a long history of the government collecting tax revenue that it doesn't want to diminish. That's where you should be looking.